Indefinite optimism. After a brief pessimistic phase in 1970s, indefinite optimism has dominated American thinking ever since 1982 when a long bull market begins and finance. The other three views of the future can work. Definite optimism works when you build a future you envision. Definite pessimism works by building what can be copied without expecting anything new. Indefinite pessimism works because it's self-fulfilling. If you're a slacker with low expectation, they'll probably be met, but indefinite optimism seems inherently unsustainable. How can the future get better if no one plans for it? Actually, most everybody in the modern world has already heard the answer to this question. Progress without planning is what we call evolution. Darwin himself wrote that life tends to progress without anybody intending it. Everybody living thing is just a random iteration on some other organism, and the best iteration win. Darwin's theory explained the origin of trilobites and dinosaurs, but can it be extended to domains that are far removed, just as Newtonian physics can explain black holes or the Big Bang? It's not clear that Darwin biology should explain how to build a better society or how to create a new business out of nothing, yet in recent years, Darwin or pseudo-Darwin metaphor have become common in business, journalists, analogies, literal survival in competitive ecosystem to corporate survivals in competitive market. Hence, all the headlines like digital Darwinism, .com Darwinism, and survival of the clickist. Even in engineering driving Silicon Valley, the buzzword of the movement call for building a lean startup that can adapt and evolve to an ever-changing environment. Would be entrepreneurs are told that nothing can be known in advance. We are supposed to listen to what customers say. They want make nothing more than a minimum viable product. Iterate our way to success. But leanness is a methodology, not a goal. Making small changes to things that already exist might lead you to a local maximum, but it won't help you find the global maximum. You could build the best version of an app that lets people order toilet paper from their iPhone, but iteration without a bold plan won't take you from 0 to 1. A company is the strangest place of all for an indefinite optimist. Why should you expect your own business to succeed without a plan to make it happen? Darwinism may be a fine theory in other contexts, but in a startup, intelligent design works best. The return of design. What would it means to prioritize design over chance? Today, good design is an aesthetic imperative, and everybody from slacker to yuppies carefully curates their outwards appearance. It's true that every great entrepreneur is first and foremost a designer. Anyone who has held an iDevice or a smoothly machined MacBook has felt the result of Steve Jobs' obsession with visual and experiential perfection. But the most important lesson to learn from Jobs has nothing to do with aesthetic. The greatest thing Jobs designed was his business. Apple imagined and executed definite multi-year plans to create new products and distribute them effectively. Forget minimum viable products. Ever since he started Apple in 1976, Jobs saw that you can change the world through careful planning, not by listening to focus growth feedback, or copying other success. Long term planning is often understood by our indefinite short term world. When the first iPod was released in October 2001, industry analysts couldn't see much more than a nice feature for Macintosh user that doesn't make any difference to the rest of the world. Jobs planned the iPod to be the first of a new generation of portable post PC devices, but that secret was invisible to most people. One look at the company's stock chart shows the harvest of this multi-year plan. Nasdaq AAPL. The power of planning explains the difficulty of valuing private companies. When a big company makes an offer to acquire a successful startup, it almost always offers too much or too little. Founders only sell when they have no more concrete vision for the company, in which case the acquirer probably overpaid. Definite founders with robust plan don't sell, which means the offer wasn't high enough. When Yahoo offered to buy Facebook for 1 billion in July 2006, I thought we should at least consider it, but Mark Zuckerberg walked into the board meeting and announced, "Okay guys, this is just a formality. It shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. We obviously not going to sell here." Mark say here he could take the company and Yahoo didn't. A business with a good definite plan will always be underrated in the world where people see the future as random. You are not a lottery ticket. You have to find your our ways back to a definite future, and the Western world needs nothing short of a cultural revolution to do it. Where to start? John Rawls will need to be displayed the philosophy department. Malcolm Gladwell must be persuaded to change his theories, and Polster have to be driving from politics. But the philosophy professors and the Gladwells of the world are set in their ways, to say nothing of our politicians. It's extremely hard to make changes in those crowded fields, even with brains and good intentions. A startup is the largest endeavor over which you you can have definite mastery. You can have agency, not just your own life, but over a small and important part of the world. It begins by rejecting the unjust trainee of chance. You are not a lottery ticket. Follow the money. Money makes money. For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. Matthew 25:29. Albert Einstein made the same observation when he stated that compound interest was the eighth wonder of the world, the greatest mathematical discovery of all time, or even the most powerful force in the universe. Whichever version you prefer, you can't miss his message. Never underestimate exponential growth. Actually, there is no evidence that Einstein ever said any of those things. The quotations are all apocryphal, but this very misattribution reinforces the message. Having invested the principle of lifetime brilliance, Einstein continued to earn interest on it from beyond the grave by receiving credit for things he never said. Most sayings are forgotten. At the other extreme, a select few people like Einstein and Shakespeare are constantly quoted, and ventriloquists. We shouldn't be surprised since the small minorities often achieve dispropor- disproportionate result. In 1906, economics Wilfredo Pareto discovered what became the Pareto principles or the 80-20 rule, when he noticed that 20% of the people own 80% of the land in Italy, a phenomenon that he found just as natural as the fact that 20% of the pea pods in his garden produce 80% of the peas. This extraordinary stark pattern in which a small few radically outstrip all rivals surround us everywhere in the natural and social world. The most destructive earthquake as are many times more powerful than all the smaller earthquakes combined. The biggest cities dwarf all mere towns put together, and monopoly business capture more value than millions of undifferent competitors. Whatever Einstein did or didn't say, the power law, so named because exponential equations describe severely unequal distribution, is the law of the universe. It defines our surroundings so completely that we usually don't even see it. The chapter shows how the power law becomes visible when you follow the money in venture capital, where investors try to profit from exponential growth in early stage companies. A few companies attain exponential great value than all other. Most business never need to deal with venture capital, but everyone needs to know exactly one thing that even venture capitalists struggles to understand. We don't live in a normal world, we live under a power law. The power law of venture capital. Venture capitalists aims to identify, fund, and profit from promising early stage companies. They raise money from institutions and wealthy people, pool it into a fund, and invest in technology companies that they believe will become more valuable. If they turn out to be right, they take a cut of the return. Usually 20%. A venture fund makes money when the company in its portfolio becomes more valuable and either go public or get bought by larger companies. Venture funds usually have a 10-year lifespan since it takes time for successful companies to grow and exist. But most venture backed companies don't IPO or get acquired, most fail. Usually soon after they start, and due to these early failures, a venture fund typically lost money at first. VCs hope the value of the fund will increase dramatically in a few years' time to break even and beyond. When the successful portfolio companies hit their exponential growth spurred and start to scale. The big question is when its takeoff will happen. For most fund, the answer is never. Most startups fail, most funds fail with them. Every VC knows that his task is to find the companies that will succeed. However, even seasoned investors understand this phenomena only superficially. Superficially, they know companies are different, but they underestimate the degree of difference. J curve of a successful venture fund portfolio value break even. The error lies in expecting that venture returns will be normally distributed. That is, bad companies will fail, mediocre ones will stay flat, and good ones will return 2x or even 4x. Assuming this bland pattern, investor assembles a diversified portfolio and hope that winners counterbalance losers, but this spray and pray approach usually produce an entire portfolio of flops with no hits at all. This is because venture returns don't follow a normal distribution overall, rather, they follow a power law. A small handful of companies radically outperform all other. If you focus on diversification instead of single-minded pursuit of a very few companies that can become overwhelming value, you will miss those rare companies in the first place. This graph shows the stark reality versus the perceived reality homogeneity. Investment return, company rank, actual, perceive. Our results at Founder Fund illustrate this skewed pattern. Facebook, the best investment in our 2005 fund, returned more than all the other combined Platter, the second best investment, is set to return more than the sum of every other investment aside from Facebook. This highly uneven pattern is not unusual. We see it in all our other funds as well. The biggest secret in venture capital is that the best investment in a successful fund equals or outperform the entire rest of the fund combined. This implies two very strange rules for VCs. First, only invest in companies that have the potential to return the value of the entire fund. This is a scary rule because it eliminates the vast majority of possible investment. Even quite successful companies usually succeed on a more humble scale. This leads to rule number two because rule number one is so restrictive that can't be any other rule. Consider what happened when you break the first rule. Andreessen Horowitz invested 250,000 in Instagram in 2010. When Facebook bought Instagram just 2 years later for 1 billion, Andreessen Andreessen needed 78 millions, a 312x return in less than 2 years. That's a phenomenal return, befitting the firm reputation as one of the very best. But in a reward weird way, it's not nearly enough because Andreessen Howard has a 1.5 billion fund. If they only wrote 250 million checks, they would need to find 90 Instagram just to break even. This is why investors typically put a lot of money into any company worth funding. And to be fair, Anderson would have invested more in Instagram later rounds had it not been conflicted out by a previous investment. VCs must find the handful of companies that will successfully go from 0 to 1 and then back them with every resource. Of course, no one can know with certainty extent which company will succeed. So even the best VCs firm have a portfolio. However, every single company in a good venture portfolio must have the potential to succeed at vast scales. At Founders Fund, we focus on 5 to 7 companies in a fundamental. Whenever you shift from the substance of a business to the financial questions of whether or not it fits into a diversified hedging strategy, venture investing start to look a lot like buying lottery tickets. And once you think that you are playing the lottery, you are already psychologically prepared yourself to lose. Why people don't see the power law? Why would professional VCs of all people fail to see the power law? For one thing, it only become clear over time, and even technology investors too often live in the present image. Imagine a firm invests in 10 companies with potential to become monopolies. Already an unusual disciplined portfolio. Those companies will look very similar in the early stage before exponential growth. Beginning of fund, investment return, no divergence in return. Over the next few years, some companies will fail while others begin to succeed. Valuations will diverge, but the difference between exponential growth and the linear growth will be unclear. Mid-fund investment return company rank. After 10 years, however, the portfolio won't be divided between winners and losers. It will be split between one dominant investment and everything else. But no matter how unambiguous the end result of the power law, it doesn't reflect daily experience since investors spend most of their time making new investment and attending to companies in their early stages. Most of the companies they work with are by defining average. Most of the difference that investors and entrepreneurs perceive early they are between relative levels of success, not between exponential dominance and failure. And since nobody wants to give up on an investment, VCs usually spend even more time on the most problematic companies than they do on the most obviously successful.